showtime. So, hey, we'll call it showtime. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for another edition. Thanks for joining me in another edition of Keep Calm and Carry. Tonight, I've got a really super cool guest, someone that I've been watching for quite some time. And I am a big fan because I think what he is trying to, kind of the content that he's trying to produce for us is going to make us better people. So cannot express how excited I am about having him on tonight. We'll obviously get him on here in just a second, but I do want to take a second to say thank you to all the Patreon members who have contributed their time, money, and effort to support this channel. It means an awful lot. Naturally, I do need to apologize to you guys because even though you are here supporting the channel, I've kind of not been the best steward of my Patreon page. I am going to work hard at improving that and making sure that you guys get first dibs on everything that's going on, and then all of the other shenanigans. I'm going to try to get a Patreon only live chat for you guys, just so we can kind of hash out some things that you guys want to see with the channel, because most of you are kind of stewards of the channel. So appreciate all of that. The next thing is naturallyfitandfire.com is up and running. My website to support everything that's going on with the channel. So if you guys are interested in a lot of the products that I review in the videos, you can find most of those over there. So if you guys want to find a smoking hot deal, I just posted one on my Facebook page. That's another place that you can find some really cool deals as well. Aero Precision has some really cool sales going on for their blems or their blemish models. Most of all of my aero builds are based off of blems. So yeah, you can't beat it. I mean, $75 for a Aero Precision M4E1 lower. I think they also had a M5E1 lower on their blems for like $105. Really, really good deal. I've got that over on my Facebook page if you want to see the link on that. So real quick, let's say hi to everyone in the chat room. Naturally, if this is your first time, make sure you give me a wave or say hi or let me know that it's your first time. We'll say hi to you. The Grim Reaper jumping in there first. Good to see you, bro. Shepard is jumping in there as well. GGLF GGG. Good to see you. I hope you are feeling better. I'll give you a call tomorrow. See how you're doing. The Gun Snob in there. Good to see you. Grant Bowen and Shooting with Uncle Dan. I know this is kind of slow getting everybody up and running. That's perfectly fine. But Shane, good to see you. Red Hawk Firearm Training. Thank you. Alan Powell, Mark. Looks like we got some more people jumping in there. So as the evening goes on, I'll either say hi to you in the chat room or I'll call you out as we go. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on and say hi to our guest tonight. John, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
I am awesome, man. How are you doing, Mark?
I am above ground. So that's
can't argue with that, right?
That's right. That's right. So John, I have been following you for quite some time. We are kind of in a little bit of the same circles here in the same area. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for all of your support with the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camps. I think that is awesome. Everything that you're doing with that program is incredible. And I know that Mike is just, he can never stop talking enough great things about you. So,
it's just something that God put on my heart, and seeing the work that they do and the good that they do in those kids' lives, I was like, man, we got to get involved in this. And yeah, man, he whoops my butt with James too pretty constantly. So, what are you going to do, right? He says, help. And you go, okay, what are we going to do?
Exactly.
And Mike and Lisa are fantastic people. What a great cause. And excited to come back this year and support them again at the ASP National Conference.
Yep. I've been supporting them for quite some time, just kind of in my own small way. If anyone is watching this, you guys are interested in helping foster teens, Mike and Lisa do a great job. I've got a link down in the description below. It's in all of my videos. So if you guys are interested in donating, whatever you can do, that would be great. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know for some people that are in the chat room may not be familiar with you or active self-protection. I really don't know how that could be, but tell us about kind of your background and just a little bit about you.
Well, so if you don't know the business, it is Active Self-Protection, and we have 2 YouTube channels here on the tubes. And the first one, Active Self-Protection, people send me real-life surveillance videos of armed robberies, carjackings, muggings, stabbings, home invasions, kind of defensive encounters of all kinds, and we do after-action reports on them. So we talk about what happened, what went right, what went wrong, what are the principles of self-defense that we can use to protect ourselves and our loved ones, mostly from a private citizen standpoint. But I also do a weekly badge cam that helps. We have about, last I counted, about 60 or 70 patrol sergeants that use them, a couple of about a dozen police academies that I know of, and 2 state post boards, 1 national post board. So those are all there, several hundred firearms instructors. And but that's just part of the business. So at my core, I'm a self-defense and firearms instructor. I've got 14 years of martial arts study, been carrying a handgun for 14 years or something now. Been teaching for almost 10 years, 9 years in the firearms world. And my background, before that, people ask me all the time, "Oh, John, were you in the military, or were you a cop or something? Why are you teaching this stuff?" And I joke with them, I go, "Yeah, I was in the military for 8 years." And they go, "Oh, all right, cool. Come on, keep asking questions, man. I was in the United States Navy. I made hot water the hard way at Uncle Sam's Canoe Club. I operated nuclear reactors. Did 0 for self-defense, right? Not a thing." So that was my first big boy job, was the U.S. Navy. And then I actually pastored a church here in the Phoenix metro area for about 14 years, 2 different churches, one for about 3.5 and then one for about 10.5. And that's my background. So my degree, I have a master's degree in biblical communication from Phoenix Seminary, and pastored for 14 years, February of 2018. So this week, 2 years ago, ASP became my solo job. And we travel the country as well and teach. I teach handgun skills as well as empty-handed skills. We do seminar training. I really do focus quite a bit. I have a church safety class that is really geared mostly for churches 400 and under, and because that's a unique challenge. Really, 200 and under is really where we focus more than anything else. We also teach appendix carry and red dot skills and those kinds of things. So we try to teach as much as we can. Our second channel, Active Self-Protection Extra, I do a weekly dry fire video or live fire video drills you can do to get better with a handgun. We bring in attorneys who talk about legal and moral self-defense. We do some gear reviews now. We talk about martial arts some. We show people what classes are like all over the country. I'm a training junkie. Took 328 hours of instruction as a student in 2019. And so we show people what classes are like. We show us teaching classes. And so that's just me, man. It's a crazy thing, making a full-time living on YouTube these days.
That's awesome. I just did want to put this up from Marcus. He says that ASP videos literally taught my lady the importance of transitional space awareness and saved her from what could have been a kidnapping. I'm forever grateful to John. And that is amazing. So congratulations to you, and way to help promote that, Marcus, in allowing your, just kind of having that as a conversational piece with your family. I think that's very important.
Man, Marcus. So I always tell folks, we get messages like this almost every week. Actually, I'd say every week now. That is, "Hey, John, you saved my life." Of course, I always say, "No, I didn't save your life. You saved your life. What did tell me what happened and how we might have helped." So I will say in the live chat, I do see Dan M saying Idaho classes in the future. Yes, we'll be in Boise this year. If you hit my website, there's the Cover Your ASP tour, and all the tour dates are in there.
Right on, right on. So that kind of what Marcus was talking about kind of leads into my next question, and that is, what is kind of your hope for active self-protection?
Well, my hope is what it is now. We get to help people literally every day to protect their families. So, the comment that we just saw from Marcus is exactly what my hope is for active self-protection, that we help real people protect themselves and their loved ones from criminal violence. And that is exactly what we're doing. Big channel right now is getting about 20 million views a month. So the word is definitely out, and we have about almost 1.6 million subscribers on the big channel now. And it's huge for me to do that. And my hope for the future, we just started an instructor certification program that is kind of unlike anything else that we've seen. We found there were some things that are awesome about the firearms instructor training world, and then some holes in the game that I didn't see anybody else filling. And so we just started our ASP instructor certification. Our first cohort started this week. We have another one starting in May. So we're going to push into that arena a lot, helping firearms instructors learn how to teach. Most programs teach people how to shoot. We're going to teach them how to teach. And then try to bring this to new audiences. And part of that ministry and mission is to help people understand that firearms ownership, firearms carry, and defensive gun use is normal. It's good. It's okay. So I am kind of a non-traditional Second Amendment advocate. So I don't use the channel and jump up and down and say, you know, we need more Second Amendment protection. But I show regular good people using firearms every day to protect themselves and their loved ones. And that shows people what a good, normal defensive gun use looks like. And so that's my hope, to get that to a bigger place and a bigger audience. Maybe at some point you might see us branch out into maybe some cable TV or something like that. You could see us on a major streaming service, maybe sooner rather than later, but time will tell. Just move on and keep going from there. I also hope the business, because of the work that we've been doing to become kind of experts in this field of understanding real life criminal violence, to do some expert witness work and to help on the legal side for helping people, and particularly legislators and those things, know what good self-defense laws look like and what bad ones look like.
Yeah, and I think that you hit a really good key piece, is that with all the negativity that is going on out there, with all the different stuff that's going on in Virginia, you got more states, pulling or falling into the red flag trap. Having something that people can point to and say, hey, look, these people were able to defend themselves and put themselves at less risk by, doing certain things and doing an after action review, I think is a great way to, highlight all of the positives that there is out there. So I really commend you in the work that you do. So when it comes to your videos, where do all of these, CCTV footage come from? Is it stuff that's sent to you? Are you out there searching for it? Do you have a contact in Brazil that just feeds you all of your videos?
So, the funny part of that, people say all the time, your channel, if it wasn't for Brazil, you wouldn't have a channel. The actual statistics are about 23% of the channel content comes from Brazil, about 46% from the US, and then about 30% from the rest of the world. Oh, wow. So there's twice as many US-based videos as there are Brazilian videos. But Brazil in particular, you have a high poverty rate with a high population density. So Sao Paulo, for instance, has 4 times the population of Los Angeles in a similar area. So 4 times the population density, with about a 5 times higher poverty rate and very strict gun control. And when you have all of that, you get high violent crime. And so there also is a lot of cameras in Brazil, just because people record everything for their own protection. So that's where those come from. And as far as where we get them, my poor CEO, Stephanie, is just absolutely inundated. She keeps the Facebook inbox clear-ish, and we probably clear 100 to 150 private messages a day in the Facebook inbox now. She also monitors, she is the email address contact on the YouTube channel, so she clears probably another 100 emails a day from people sending us stuff. Now, in the early days, I went out and searched, and my Google foo is pretty strong, so I would go and look for stuff. And then now, though, 98% come to us from fans who are sending us links that they found in various social media, whether that's here on YouTube or places like LiveLeak or other less popular sites, and some even kind of from the dark web. That not dark web, I mean, but sites that I wouldn't necessarily send people to. And so she does those and then correlates all those and sends them to me. And then my Facebook friends deluge me with video content too when they see it in other places. And now we also have people sending me their defensive encounters. So probably at least monthly now, I have somebody say, John, this was me, and I'd love to get your thoughts and an after action review here, so how I can do better next time or whatever. And when we do that, we like to have them come over, not only put them on the main channel if it's a good video, which they often are, but also to come over on Active Self Protection Extra and talk to us about it and kind of do an interview and debrief them and get a little bit more in depth. So, but 98% now are on publicly available social media, and surveillance video is public. It's not, there's no intellectual property attached to surveillance video. So what you'll see is I almost never do cell phone video. People send me cell phone videos all the time, but I almost never do them because those have intellectual property attached to them. Somebody pointed a camera, pushed the record button, that's their intellectual property that they took. But that's not the case for surveillance video, so we do those.
If someone gives you explicit permission to use it, will that change anything? Or okay,
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. If somebody sends me, I will occasionally do so. We had one not too long ago out of Florida that he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and had to stop a guy who was threatening some people in his neighborhood, and his daughter was on her phone taking video of the whole thing. And he sent it to me and said, hey, John, I just wanted you to see what you try to do, what you talk about. And I said, hey, man, can I use that video? And he's like, absolutely, go for it. So we did that video because I had explicit permission.
Absolutely. Great. So just real quick, I do see a lot of people in the chat room jumping in there. Hello to everybody out there, Complete Combatant, Chad, Stephanie, Alan. I think I didn't see you jump in earlier, but a lot of questions. Where can we find Active Self Protection? Is there Facebook groups? Obviously, there's YouTube channel. Is there any place else?
Yeah, so of course, the YouTube channels, Active Self Protection and Active Self Protection Extra, both here on YouTube, but also we have a thriving Facebook page, about 293,000 followers or something on our Facebook page. You can find us there. And then we have a couple of groups on Facebook, but they're kind of limited. We have a patrons group. We have a dry fire group. So if you want to get better with your handgun skills, we have the Ask Dry Fire challenge that people can come in and be a part of that, which is really awesome. You can follow me on Instagram as well at Active Self Protection. That's kind of behind the scenes and me just kind of living that life and having some fun and goofing off and doing those things. So that's probably the best places to find us.
All right, outstanding. So I've already got your YouTube channel in the description. I'll update that as we conclude the live chat so that everybody can find this. If you're watching this later, I will try to grab as many of the different places that they can find you and put it into the description. Normally, I'm a little bit better at that and doing that ahead of time. But today's
we all got busy lives, man.
Yeah, today's a wonky day. So please, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put the @fit_n_fire into your question so it will highlight on my side. And then, or if I miss it, my moderators, hopefully they will pick it up as well. So, Marcus talked about this a little bit earlier in his question. We talk about transitional spaces, we talk about situational awareness. We talk about people, got this right here stuffed in their face all the time. What are some of the things, what are some of the easy things that you discussed on ASP that can help people be more situationally aware in those transition spaces and other areas that people may not consider?
So one of the big things that I always talk about is that I've actually changed my terminology, and I am inviting the defensive training community to change it with me. That we talk about situational awareness, but then I say, how do you situational aware? Tell me, how do you aware? And everybody goes, I don't know. Well, your mama taught you how to do this when you were 4 years old. She said, pay attention. You're going to go outside in the store, and she'd smack you upside the head and say, hey, pay attention. Or, you're reading a book or something, or goofing off or picking your nose, and she'd go, hey, pay attention. What? And then you'd look and see what was going on in your world. So I prefer the phrase pay attention. It's simple, it's memorable, and everybody knows how to do it. So, and I also think that truly paying attention involves more than situational awareness. It starts with personal awareness, who I am, what my capabilities are, where my limitations are today. That includes what tools I might have on me or not. Then I have to have environmental awareness, what's going on in my world, and then situational awareness. What situation do I find myself in, and what's the best response to that situation? So one of the biggest things is, of course, we have these magic pocket supercomputers, right? Ooh, fancy. But if you check your social media like everybody does, and I do this all the time with people, and I say, okay, if you open your smartphone and check your social media, what do? You go, you do this, and you stick your phone right here. and you bring your nose down and you look at it. Well, what that does, that's a biological and anatomical signal to your brain that if you bring your hands in here close and you pay attention to them, your brain removes, it's still, your eyeballs still bring in all the light from around, but you've reshaped your corneas, and that brings all your visual acuity right here, your foveal vision. And so your brain ignores everything else. So one of the biggest things that you can do is you can take that phone and take it off of your sternum. Most people put it right on their xiphoid process. So take it off there and stick it out in front of you, and bring your nose up and bring your phone away from you. That lets you see things in a much broader and better perspective. Even better than that, of course, stick the stupid thing in your pocket and see what's going on in your world. And when I say pay attention, what I always tell folks is the best way you can do that is not to be paranoid, but to be curious like a 5-year-old, and to be curious about your space. You know, you see a 4-year-old going to somewhere new, they go into the grocery store or something. They're not just, you know, it's not all normal to them. They get in there and they go, ooh, what's up here? What's happening in my world? What's going on in all this stuff? And they go explore. Well, if you can mentally stay there as well, I'm not saying you have to skip around like a 4-year-old, but if you just mentally explore and say, what's going on in this space? What's going on here? And is that person normal? Here's a person I've never met before. Are they okay? When I see a new person, to pay attention to them, I look at 3 things immediately as a self-defender. I look at their eyes, I look at their hands, I look at their waist. Those 3 things. The eyes are the windows to the soul. They tell me what's going on in someone's mind. And if you're paying attention, you can really learn a lot just from how somebody's paying attention to their world. Second thing, I look at their hands. Are there good things or bad things in their hands? Or nothing in their hands? Or are they clenching their hands? Are they looking at me with intent and clenching their fists up? That's a clue. And then I look at their waist. Is there anything there that might, threaten me or those that I love? If I have eyes that look like somebody is smiling at me or not paying attention to me at all, if they're off in the blah blue yonder and they don't see me at all, their hands aren't filled with something dangerous, their waist doesn't look like I've got a big bulge or something that I'm going to pull out of there, well, then I'm probably okay with them. But if I'm walking into the store at Walmart or something, and some guy's looking at me and he's looking at me like I'm food and I can't see his hands, well, now I might need to at least take steps to make sure that he's not an active threat to me. So that's the big thing. Look at your world with curiosity and see what's going on in your world. Check people eyes, hands, face. Eyes, hands, waist. Eyes, hands, waist. And if you do that, then 90% of your attention paying problems go away.
And I think one of the videos that I watched not too long ago is an individual who got stabbed in the gut. And when you were breaking that down, the guy who actually did the stabbing got knocked out. And
Yep.
I think that was really funny. But the point that you made was that there were visual cues that that there was something bad was about to go down. Can you kind of describe some of those visual cues that people can start to pick up on if someone comes up and starts talking to you, if their hands are a certain way or they're looking some way, some of those things that kind of help people understand?
So I always tell people that you already know this stuff in reality, because when somebody is threatening you or could be threatening to you, you get anxious, right? Nobody looks at somebody and goes, man, I just thought he was going to talk to me about his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And then the next thing I knew, he stabbed me with a knife. That's not how it goes. So that we call it your creep alarm, right? Your internal sense that like, something's weird here. Something's not right. Well, that's your subconscious reading all those cues and saying, this is dangerous. Don't sit here. Do something about that. So what are some of those cues? Eyes are important. So the way that people are looking, particularly if he's target glancing or if he is route glancing. So by a route glance, I mean, that's people who are, they're talking to you, but they're looking away. They might be looking, are there witnesses around here? Or is there an escape route around here? Or when I take this, am I going to be able to get out of here quickly? Target glancing, when you're like, oh, okay, I've got my phone in my hand and he keeps looking down at my phone. That's a place that he's going to go. We're talking. He should be looking me in the face if he's having an interaction with me. In that particular video, of course, when somebody is aggressive, we see them all the time. This is very common. If somebody's thinking of being aggressive, they jut their face forward and their chin. They go, what, you got a problem with me? And you see that all the time. They'll put that forward and that's a dominance play. And especially if they do that with their hands down. So I see people all the time, they're like standing there with their hands at their side while a guy's jutting his chin out, clenching his fist with his hand at his side and making a menacing face. And I go, and you stood there until he punched you in the face and you didn't expect him to punch you in the face when he gave you every sign that he was about to punch you in the face. So in those cases, of course, we want to back up. We talk about using a defensive fence all the time, and that defensive fence doesn't have to be aggressive, right? So it doesn't have to be, hey man, I don't want to fight you. A great defensive fence backing away, hey man, that's close enough, right? So a class that you can take there, Craig Douglas's curriculum here, Managing Unknown Contacts from the Shipworks Consortium folks, is fantastic in this arena. Chuck Haggard, I know, has taught bits and pieces of that. I know Cecil Birch teaches it too. Any of the Shipworks guys do. And that curriculum is really fantastic. Understanding how to manage those contacts that aren't quite violent yet, but are definitely not known friendlies.
Great. That's a great segment to kind of talk about some of those nonverbal cues, right? That we talk about. We hear nonverbal cues when we interact with people at work. The nonverbal communication also goes into protecting yourself as well. Riley Bowen in the chat room, he says, he's asking, what are your thoughts on time performance standards as it relates to reacting to a threat? I'm assuming, Riley, correct me if I'm wrong, but using a timer at the range.
Yeah. So we talk about this all the time on the channel. You'll hear me on the big channel talk about this if you're carrying a firearm. That we have 3 standards that we talk about all the time. We talk about a 2.0 draw to first shot as a standard of a concealed carrier, the ability to get your gun out from whatever position you have it and get a shot, a center mass hit on a man-sized target. So a center mass hit is something like an 8-inch circle or an A zone on an IPSC target, and to do that in under 2 seconds. And I see that save people's lives all the time. The professional standard is 1.5 seconds. Because if you have 1.5 seconds, you don't have your go signal can be a lot less than 2 seconds. And then the expert standard of 1.0 seconds. And if you have a 1.0 draw to first shot on a man-sized target, on a critical zone, then there's very few problems that can't be solved with a 1 second draw to first shot. In fact, I'm getting to the place that if he doesn't know you're going to shoot him, in other words, if the bad guy thinks that he's intimidating you with his gun or whatever, and hey, I don't want any problems or whatever, I'm beginning to think if you are under a 1.0 draw to first shot, you might well be able to beat him and actually draw from the drop and win. But I'm not positive of that one yet, but I'm beginning to think you are.
Great. That's some really great insight, because sometimes I do use a timer, sometimes I don't use a timer. I've heard arguments both ways. So to hear that, is actually going to start getting me to use my timer a little bit more at the range.
I always tell people this: what gets measured gets improved. Whatever you're measuring, you will work on. What you're not measuring, you won't work on. And the timer does not tell you everything, right? You can be super fast out of the holster and get a shot, but there's an awful lot more about, well, what is the timer? When does it start in a gunfight? Now, of course, people say, well, there's no timer in a gunfight. That's stupid. There is absolutely a timer in a gunfight. You just don't know what the par time is. You don't know what that is. It's a competition between you and this other person. And unfortunately, for instance, like we saw at the West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement, Texas, a few weeks ago, unfortunately, that the first defender there, it took him about 3.1 seconds to get his gun out in the fight. And unfortunately, that just wasn't quite fast enough to get that guy before he shot and killed him. Whereas Jack Wilson got his gun out once he decided to get that gun out, took a very high stress shot at 15 yards and hit it. And that is a threat. So there's absolutely a timer in a gunfight without any question. You just don't know what the part time is going in.
Yep. And that actually is a great transition, talking about what happened in Texas. Shane in the chat room, he says that he is now attending a new church and wants to know if it's a good idea to let him know that, hey, I carry everywhere. Is there, start a conversation with finding out if they have a security team, if that's a good idea or not. What's your take on whether or not he should have that conversation?
It's kind of funny. So my wife and I, about a year ago now, we, after I left vocational ministry, we went and found a new place to worship, because you can't stick around at some point. You know what I mean? You're the old guy. You're the ghost of Christmas past. You got to get out of there. And so we went and looked, and I kind of took the approach that I wanted to know. So do you have a church safety program? Do you have any kind of thing where you're thinking about the protection of your children and your elderly? Do you have any medical training? Those kinds of things. So I didn't just jump in there and go, hi, I'm carrying a gun. What are you doing? That could be an odd discussion at times. So instead, I was just looking, so what are you doing? And tell me about that. And how does that work for you? And those kinds of things. And then offered to them, because of who I am, I said, hey, if you want to do some church safety training, it's kind of one of my things. And if you want to get better with marksmanship, I'm happy to help you with that and those kinds of things. So that's kind of how I'd approach it, rather than go, hey, what are we going to do? The other part of that, and I tell people this all the time, every year in America, there are about 2 active killers on church campuses during worship services. Year in, year out, we have, roughly 2. There are about 5 million worship services a year in America, between, among all the churches in America holding worship service. I guess all religious institutions. So that would include synagogues, mosques, all that stuff. So you're talking a 1 in 2.5 million chance that you're going to be involved in the active killer problem. And so I don't think that is the biggest problem and the most common problem for us to deal with. So you do need to deal with it, though, because of the consequences if it does show up. But far more frequently, do you have a medical plan in your church for if somebody has a heart attack? Does your church have an AED? And if you don't, you're wrong, and you need to fix that right now. If you can get an AED on somebody having a heart attack, their chances of dying of that heart attack just plummet. I mean, their survivability goes through the roof if you can get an AED on them. Do you know the signs of a stroke? Do you have a medical plan if something goes wrong? If a child gets lost? If you have a disgruntled person, but you don't need to shoot him, he's just angry. Do you know how to de-escalate that problem and deal with it? So those are the kind of things we talk about first in church safety.
And that actually brings up another question in the little list that I had for you is, when it comes to de-escalation, obviously for people that may or may not be trained, they may not know if that is something that is important enough to have in their toolbox of training. What are some of the, I guess, the ways to help get people to understand how useful de-escalation actually can be?
2 books. First 2 books you got to read. Number 1 is an oldie but a goodie, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. You have to learn people skills. If you don't have people skills, you bump up and you have stupid problems. John Wayne said, life is hard. It's harder if you're stupid. And if you don't know how to deal with people, then you're going to bump into stupid problems every day. And Dale Carnegie's book is not about manipulating people. It's learning how to understand the social grease that makes our world work. It's funny, I just today, in fact, was at a local high school talking to a bunch of kids about running a successful YouTube channel because they had it's a career thing, and they wanted to know. Of course, kids are like, oh, I want to be a YouTube celebrity. Best of luck. But my big thing to them was I had one of the kids in one of the classes come up and go, well, what's your best move? Like, what's your favorite self-defense move? And I go, you know what my favorite self-defense move is? I'll show it to you right now. Hey, man, I am really sorry. Please forgive me for that. I shake his hand and say, let me buy you a Coke or something, bro. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You're right. And avoiding that problem is probably the biggest solution that most of us can have. And eating your ego and putting your ego to death is probably the biggest one. Now, the second book, after you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People, is a book called Verbal Judo. And the gentle art of persuasion and getting somebody to understand that we can both win here, I think is very important. I think it's Winston Churchill who said that tact and diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip. And understanding how to talk to people. And some of that in verbal judo, you can even go on YouTube and find videos on things like the LEAPS method of communication. LEAPS is something you want to practice, but it's very simple. It's an acronym: listen, empathize, ask questions, paraphrase, and save face. If you can do those things for people, you can get them on your side and de-escalate almost any problem. And most social violence can be solved with a simple apology, with an avoidance, with a de-escalation. I tell people all the time, you do not have to attend every fight you're invited to. I can give you, for instance, on this, my middle daughter and I, we were out, this was about a year ago, I think now, out and it was a little later and she wanted a Slurpee and she's having a tough night. So we drove her to the local convenience store. We got her a Slurpee. This guy comes in, he cuts in line in front of us with like an energy drink, and he puts it down. Oh, I want a pack of smokes. And then he realized he didn't have any money on him. So he tosses it angry and goes out to his car. And I was like, all right, whatever, dude. I didn't interact with him. Paid for our stuff. As we walk out, he peels out of the parking space right next to where we're walking and puts it in drive and starts getting ready to go. So I put my hand out for my middle and I was like, okay, man, go ahead. And he leans out his passenger window that was down, and he says, "I'll be nice." He goes, "F you," like as loud as he can through his passenger window. Now, of course, I'm tooled up, right? If this guy decides to get out of the car, he's going to have a bad day. If he gets out of the car aggressive, he's going to get a face full of pepper spray. God help him if he gets out of the car with a tire iron or something, he's going to get filled in. But he said, "F you," and I just had my hand on my middle daughter, and I looked at him and I went, "Dude, you're totally right. F me, man. I'm so sorry. You are totally right. F me. I apologize." And so then he just peeled out in front of us and left through the parking lot. And my daughter goes, "What's wrong with that guy?" "I don't know. He's having a bad day. I didn't want to have a fight with him. Let's head to the car." Funny part was there was two guys filling up their motorcycles right next to my car. And then one of the motorcycles was like, "You're the ASP guy, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I am." And he was like, "Oh, man, that guy didn't know who he was messing with." And I was like, "It's better off that, we all get to go home today. So you guys keep the shiny side up and have a nice night,
Yeah.
So learning that art of de-escalation, I didn't have to have a fight with the guy. The guy goes, "F you." I could have said, "No, buddy, F you. What's your problem?" "Yeah, rah." But then what? Now we're just escalated the problem. Instead, he gets to go off on his way. I get to go home. I don't have to worry about the safety of my child, and everybody's happy. And I get a great story I can tell all the time.
Yeah, exactly. De-escalation is something that a lot of people don't realize is probably one of the best ways to make sure that you're alive the next day.
Yeah, you win every fight that you don't get in.
Exactly. A little bit of humility goes a long way, even if you're right.
You could be dead right. I've seen plenty of people that are dead right.
Yep. I got myself into a bad situation about 10 years ago here at Kansas State University. Did what most college kids did. Went down to the bar district. I'm sitting down. I just so happened to sit on a table and knock over a cup, a solo cup, but there were several of them, I was just sitting on the table. It's kind of like a park bench type of thing. And there's a whole bunch of cups. I spilled one, big deal. A little bit later, this lady comes up and says, "Hey, you just spilled my drink. You're going to buy me another one." And I was like, did you just seriously set your drink down on a table with no one watching it? And then now you want me to buy it? I was like, nah, I'm not going to buy you a new one. And I guess her boyfriend came up. There was a little bit of a back and forth, and he said some things. I said some things. I got my, obviously got my pride in it a little bit too much. And she ended up pouring his drink on my head.
Awesome.
Right. So here I am drenched in beer, and, I go, getting ready to go here, see red. And luckily enough, my roommate just so happened to be kind of watching from a distance. And as soon as she picked up her drink and started to pour it on me, he came right on over and just kind of put his arms around me and pulled me away. And I was like, "Hey, I appreciate that, man. I wasn't going to do anything." But in growing up since then, I realized, if I would have been like, "Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't personally think it's a good idea that you left your drink unattended in a college town when there's, kind of a rape problem on campus right now, but
right.
I'll go buy you another one, and
I mean,
apologize
if that'll
for
make
that.
the whole problem go away, okay, fine.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Buy a beer and we're friends again. Hey, you bet. I'm sorry. Now let me buy a beer. You bet. I'd buy a beer anyway.
Exactly. I didn't get into a fight, but I would have been dry,
Right. Yeah, just the not having a beer poured over you would have made it worth it, right?
I know. So anyway, that was just kind of my little thing. And then, last year I was actually able to get into the ring and fight an amateur kickboxing fight. Was able to get my nose broke in that fight. And let me tell you, you gain a lot of perspective getting punched in the face, and
it sucks.
It does.
I mean, having been punched in the face vigorously by somebody who meant it sucks.
Yeah, it really does. And I can tell you, what I've learned from that experience is I don't want to get punched in the face ever again. So if I'm in a situation where I may have to defend myself, my first step is to say, "Hey, how can we make this right? Is there anything that I can do?" And if he's like, no, there's nothing you can do that's going to make this right. We're going to throw down, or whatever the case may be. we'll see what happens, So,
Right.
but yeah, that those two experiences has been probably the two biggest growing experiences that I've ever had. So, I did want to back up. I did have a question earlier. It's actually from my dad. He was kind of interested in what kind of got you in your crusade to kind of do all of this. Was there a certain specific event in your life that said, you know what, this is the path I need to go?
Yes and no. So I grew up around firearms. I grew up hunting a little bit. My dad was a duck hunter. He didn't take me duck hunting much. That was his time. But my grandpa and I hunted a good bit in my teen years. So I was around firearms. But then I joined the military, and it's pretty much impossible to take firearms with you when you're in the military. It's just a royal pain, especially if you're living in base housing. So I didn't own any guns. I did buy a shotgun for the house when we bought our first home. And really, I think a kind of a watershed was when I was going to seminary. I was running a video game store to pay bills, and the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3 came out, and managers that were working for the company that I was working for were getting hurt, and they're having robberies for them. And I was like, nah, that's not going to happen to me. I read a couple of those stories, and I was like, nope, not me, fam. So it's Arizona, 2006. I went down and got my concealed carry permit. It was an 8-hour class that, now looking at it, was just a really horrifically bad class, quite frankly. And I bought the wrong gun. I put it in the wrong holster. Well, the holster wasn't bad. I loaded it with the wrong ammo, and I wore it as a lucky rabbit's foot, as a whoopee for a while. And then about the same time, my son was taking martial arts as his extracurricular activity. We were homeschooling, and karate was his extracurricular. And he was like, Papa, come take karate with me. So I started taking karate with my son about the same time, martial arts, and I fell in love with it. And so we just kind of were having fun, and it gets expensive though. You're taking martial arts, you start taking, it wasn't too long after that, I'm like, man, if I'm going to carry this gun, I should probably know how to use it. And so then I started training, I started taking classes, started trying to get better with my handgun. That stuff gets expensive. So man, I got to find a way to write some of this stuff off, at least pay less for it. I'm a teacher in my core competency. So that's why I started the company, was basically to write off ammo. And write off classes. So did that for a while. What started the videos was we started a Facebook page. The Facebook page grew, and we started doing, when Facebook started rewarding memes, we were making high quality defensive memes for people to think about self-defense. And then when they started video in 2014, Facebook started allowing video. And we started posting a couple. Somebody sent me a video of a real life knife attack, and that was a watershed moment. I was like, whoa, that was real. Holy cow, that was real. So I posted on the Facebook page, and people went nuts for it. And I showed it to my martial arts teacher, Professor Lawrence Robinson at Attitude First Martial Arts Academy. And I said, Mr. Robinson, have I missed this in the system? Because I don't know what to do here. This is different. And he was like, yeah, that's crazy. Let's workshop it. Let's talk about it. Let's learn. And so we did, and we came up with some good things. After a while, somebody attacks you with a knife and you don't have any tools on you yourself. It's a bad situation. Somebody's like, oh, John, how can I protect myself against the knife? You probably can't. That's the reality of things. You're probably going to get real bloody. But that taught me something. That said, oh, man, video, this thing that actually happened, can really inform what skills I'm training. And so we started putting a few of those on the Facebook page. And then somebody sent me a video that was like 4.5 minutes long. But the first 4 minutes were nothing. It was just boring. And then 30 seconds of action. And I knew I had to take that 4 minutes out, and I had software. I had Adobe Premiere on my laptop, but I didn't know how to use it. So I went to the YouTubes, how to use Adobe Premiere Basic, go. And the first tutorial had a little bit in there about how to record audio in the program. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I wonder, like, I could just talk over and do like play-by-play. I could be like the John Madden of on-camera violence. That'd be interesting. And we did that, and it was a hit. So, okay, cool. And then we started posting those, and people really enjoyed them. And then YouTube, after a while, said I could monetize my channel if I wanted to. So, all right, sure, why not? And once we started posting them on YouTube, it took off pretty quick from there.
That's outstanding. I did have another question that jumped in here. You mentioned pepper spray and the incident with your daughter. Someone jumped in and said POM is the pepper spray that you recommend. Can you talk about that a little bit? Or
yeah. So I do recommend a strong OC spray. OC spray is a very good tool. Think of it like a long range eye poke, and as a get off me tool, and it's very effective. It takes the fight out of the fighter. for
and what is OC spray for those that don't know?
Right, OC spray or pepper spray. OC stands for oleoresin capsicum. It's the active ingredient in pepper spray. It is the hot stuff in organic peppers, and they take that out of there, they refine it in those things and put it in some kind of a medium. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about pepper sprays. People think, oh, this is 10% OC and so it's strong. No, that doesn't make it strong or not strong. This has 6 million Scoville units. Nope, Scoville units don't make it strong. What makes a pepper spray effective or not is the major capsaicinoids percent. So you want to look for what is the percent MC for effectiveness. You want at least 0.5% MC, at least 0.5% major capsaicinoid, but stronger is better. So I do recommend Palm OC. That Palm OC is that Palm stands for peace of mind. The owner, Alex, is a great dude, and we actually invited him to become a sponsor of the channel, and he did. Palm, we actually say Palm stands for plenty o misery. It is miserable stuff. At the NEPSO conferences last year, actually, Alex, the owner of Palm, had the legendary lawman Chuck Haggard spray him with his OC, and we got it on video, and it was miserable. And yeah, that one's bad. If you, for some reason, don't like Palm, the only other one that I kind of recommend is the Saber Red formula is a good formula. I like the canister on the Palm a lot better, though, so that's the one I recommend.
Outstanding.
And they're like $13 on Amazon. They're not expensive.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Is there any other brands or any brands that you should stay away from? I guess that would be a great.
I would say the only two that I know their batch consistency is strong and that they really test their stuff are Palm and Saber. Those are the only ones that I know very well, and that they use a water-based solvent and they don't have any weird stuff in their propellants. Other companies, I just don't know what kind of quality control they use. So those are the two that I say, if you want to go with those ones, do that. And of course, I know Alex, he's a great guy, and the company is fantastic. The product is good, and I recommend Palm.
Outstanding.
Carry one every day.
Is that, would you advise for people to carry that in lieu of, say, a knife if they're unable to carry a firearm, or which would you prefer to have?
Different tools for different use, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's like saying to a handyman, do you want to have a hammer or a screwdriver? Mm-hmm. Well, they serve different functions. And can I use a hammer to drive a screw? Kinda. Can I use a screwdriver as a hammer? Not great. So I personally, this is a weird thing, and I get in a lot of trouble for this thought, but I've analyzed 20 to 25,000 defensive encounters. I've only seen once or twice that somebody has ever used a defensive knife, and that's very rare. But I see plenty of instances that an OC spray would have been very useful and ended a fight earlier than even having to use deadly force. Mm-hmm. So if you're only going to have one or the other, I would suggest an OC spray is a great tool, and especially even for those who don't feel comfortable carrying a firearm. Like, man, I don't feel like I could do that. Well, an OC spray, again, a good spray that'll go 10 or 12 feet can give you a long range eye poke, make somebody's life absolutely miserable, and give you time to get out of the situation. Whereas a defensive knife, of course, you have to be within arm's length, and most people do not have the emotional fitness to use a knife in self-defense. It's that simple. It is. If you use a knife on somebody enough to get them off you in self-defense, not only will they look like a carved Christmas goose, but you will be covered in their blood. And if you think that's something you're going to be able to do, what I'd suggest is take a great class in defensive knife use, get up close and personal with somebody with training blades, and realize every time you touch them with that, they're coming back on you with their blood, and see if you've got the emotional fortitude to deal with that. I honestly don't think many do.
Yeah, I can tell you just my time overseas, there was, a couple instances where I was covered in blood, and, even today I have nightmares about that, Yeah. It's a lasting impression, because that substance is what brings life to everyone. And Yep. When that substance is all over you and it's not yours, it can have a lasting impression for sure. So, yeah, let's transition a little bit here. We've talked about pepper spray, we've talked about knives, different tools and stuff like that, but we've also talked about de-escalation, but there's also something else that we can do. And I'd like to get your understanding on, how is, see if I can phrase this question correctly, but escape is another viable option. What are some of the things that you should be doing to either plan an escape, figure out how to start an escape, or just basically prepare yourself for whatever is coming, to have a plan?
I think it can be a little oversimplified, but Reddy Houston's run, hide, fight mentality is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that it has limits, and it's not the end all be all and a panacea. However, I think that recognizing that running away and getting out of the danger zone is a viable strategy, and if it's possible, do so. I do think that for self-defenders, we talk about stand your ground a lot, and we talk about the duty to retreat versus standing your ground. I believe that every state in the union should have a strong protection that me as a good person, I should not have to retreat. I should be able to be in my space. They have the duty not to assault me. That said, from a tactical and practical perspective, ignore stand your ground completely. If you can get away and not get hurt, do it. Absolutely. So when we talk about escape, some guy cuts you off and wants to have a road rage incident. Get away from him. Make the right turn. Go another direction. Flip the quick Yui. Get away from the guy. If you know where the back door is at the convenience store that you're in, or you see problems in the front of Walmart, run out the back of Walmart. And you go, but I'm not allowed back there. Yeah, but there's bad things going in the other place. What's the worst thing they're going to do? Kick you out of the back part of Walmart? Give me a break, right? If you can't run away, hide. If he can't see you, he can't attack you. It's that simple. And I know in our defensive training world, there's a lot of discussion about cover versus concealment or those kinds of things. The reality is in criminal violence, they work about the same. And so get behind concealment. If he can't see you, he won't fight you. And that might give you an opportunity to get out of there. The other thing I always tell people is don't just run away from danger, run to safety. Find where am I going and focus on my location, what I'm going to get. So see people all the time, they start running away and then they look over their shoulder because they're trying to see, is this guy following me? So they're running away from that danger. Well, guess what? I'm not paying attention to what's in front of me now. I tend to run into stuff. I tend to fall on my face. And also, I'm not running as fast as if I'm looking behind me. So pick that spot. I'm going there and run to it.
Exactly. Having a plan is always better than not having a plan, obviously. But one of my favorite movies is Ronin, and Robert De Niro's character always, well, not always, but he had a line in that movie that says, I never walk into a place that I don't know how to get out of, and yeah, it's kind of macho to hear that in that movie, but as we've now moved forward 25 years since that movie came out, it holds true. I mean, it's very true. If I'm at Walmart, hopefully I try not to go to Walmart as much as possible, but sometimes it's kind of entertaining.
Yeah. Well, and knowing, okay, so I walk in the front door, I got this big store, but where are my exits and those things? If I can, if you don't mind, I did have one of the commenters in the live comments said that wasp spray is a very good personal protective tool also. That is an absolute myth. Please ignore anybody who tells you wasp spray is good against bad guys. It is not. That is utterly wrongity wrong. It is wrong on every level. It's fractally wrong. And so don't use wasp spray. It will not work. It is not going to help you. No. OC spray, pepper spray. They sometimes market it as bear spray. Get the big canister if you want to. That'll hose a bear from 30 or 40 feet. Great. But not wasp spray. The stuff does not work.
There you go. There, Stephanie, thanks for bringing that up. I did also see that in there. I was going to try to work that in on a transition. Let's see. Okay, Eric, I don't even know. I'm not even going to bother with that one. But I lost my train of thought there.
My bad. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So definitely know the wasp spray, OC spray, bear spray. Great non-lethal options as well. And I would say at the end of the day, just don't be a jerk,
Yeah. Amen. Be a good person, be a good, sane, sober, moral person, and you probably will have very few social violence problems. And then the problems that you do have, you can deal with.
Okay. So there is a question that jumped in here real quick. Blitz, thank you so much for dropping in the $5 for the super chat. Recommendations with dealing with the post-adrenaline dump of actually having to draw with intention and then it de-escalates.
I think the interesting thing is the higher level you train yourself to, the less likely you are to have the adrenaline spike in the moment. And I can tell you that in my own life, that's happened, not in self-defense, but in motorcycling. So I've had, I had a lot of training in riding a motorcycle, rode a bike. I don't have a bike right now, but I've ridden one for most of my life. And have had a couple of spots where almost became street pizza. And thankfully, because of a lot of training, able to evade and get to my right spot, get out of the situation, and then realize, okay, I'm doing okay because I reverted to my training rather than freaking out.
Yep.
So I do think in defensive encounters, I see highly trained people that avoid crazy, adrenaline until it's over. And then after it's over, you got to definitely deal with that. Now, a couple things on that. If you are having an adrenaline spike, what you have to do is start to control your breathing, and your breathing will control your heart rate. So we call it combat breathing. That's that in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And that's kind of hard to do when you're just chill, when you're sitting here. But when you're really spiking up, that will actually physiologically put a damper on the adrenaline response and get it out of your system faster. And then, of course, you want to do things like, this is why I tell people a quality holster is so important. So then that way, if you are starting to feel that dump and you got to put the gun away in the holster, you don't do crazy stuff, but you think, okay, slow down the breathing. Okay, I'm okay. Let's do what we need to do here. So then that way we're safe with the gun.
Absolutely. And another thing to kind of caveat, at least from my perspective, any type of cardio that you can do to strengthen your heart is going to just be that much more of a useful tool in that situation as well. So jumping in here real quick is Izzy, new phone. Thank you so thank you so much for the $5.56, 5.56 millimeter, all that jazz. Thank you so much, Izzy. You are the man. I got to sit next to him a lot at SHOT Show and chat with him. I just cannot believe how intelligent that guy is. He just wows me every single time. Cool. I did have a question here from Aaron. I don't know if this is trolling at this point or not, but he wants to know thoughts about Urban Carry leather holsters.
I did on the Urban Carry G1. I actually did a video on the Active Self-Protection Extra channel, and that video was entitled "A Wretched Pulsating Ball of Suck and Fail." That was the first one. Then the Urban Carry G2 came out, and people were like, "Oh, John, it got better." I didn't do a video on that one because no, it didn't. The Urban Carry G3, what they made is an improvement to that. It has a click in on it so that it's supposed to, at least you won't yeet it out of the holster when you go to draw it. However, it still has the singular problem that I think it cannot overcome by its design, which is it's designed to be carried below the waist. And so if you are not in a fully upright standing position, you cannot draw that gun out of its holster. So if I am bent over at all, that gun is not coming out of that holster at all. And so that makes it an utter and complete failure as a holster. I do not recommend it. I think it does not do the things that a holster needs to do to be safe and effective. So I avoid at all costs.
Yep. I think, don't they also have just a leather holster that's kind of inside the waistband, not meant to be under the waistband, but kind of inside the waistband that still does have that click?
Got me.
Okay. I thought I saw a commercial for that before one of the many videos that I watched, but
the funny part is they take out all kinds of ads on my Active Self-Protection Extra channel, and I'm like, you guys really want to give me money for ads? Really? All right. I mean, whatever, that's great, but people ask me about it, and I say, no, it's a wretched pulsating ball of suck and fail. You should avoid
it. well, at least your footsteps will be as quiet as a
Navy SEAL. Anyways, I'm going to get myself in trouble if I say more.
I can't. Well, I need to meet their marketing genius that came up with that. So,
I mean, people they make them to sell, and many products in the industry are designed to separate gullible people from their money.
Exactly. So that actually brings us to a good question from Dan here. We'll take this as kind of our last question. I've got one more, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. We're approaching an hour. Biggest gimmick from SHOT Show. I think that's a great question.
I know she's watching, and I'm going to see. I'm tempted to text my CEO and see if she thinks that I'm brave enough to say it.
Oh.
I got in trouble with this one. Got kind of threatened by the owner of this company.
Ooh.
But the reality is, I think the biggest gimmick of SHOT Show 2020 is a product called the grip knife, which was an AR-15 vertical foregrip with an out the front knife stuck in it that you could, if you got in a fight over your hand, over your rifle, you could then pull that knife and go to work on them with your support hand. And like many other things, they kind of go, oh, well, Navy SEALs helped us develop it. You know, your problem with that is I know an awful lot of SEALs. And I know some SEALs who are incredibly smart guys, and some SEALs, they give two darns about equipment, and whatever the government issues them, they're going to use, and they're not at all good at doing this, especially at recontextualizing things for a non-US Navy SEAL team. So I think that was an absolute gimmick, and it's like $500 or something. And I'm like, good gracious, you're going to spend $500 on that. So to me, that's just a gimmick product that just separates gullible people from their money.
Yeah. I mean, I was researching antique World War II samurai swords because I've got this weird thing now that I want to buy a samurai sword from World War II. And I saw some that were like $500. I'm like, I was and I actually had someone send that to me in a DM on Instagram, a buddy of mine, and I'm pretty sure he was trolling me. But I was like, look, if you need a knife attached to your rifle, you've got bigger problems to worry about at that point.
Well, and I mean, gracious sake. So if I'm fighting my rifle over somebody, so if I'm living in that kind of world, what are the chances I have a gun on my side too? I have a backup pistol. Oh, I'm having a problem here. Well, wait, I'd rather go for this grip knife with my support hand than take my dominant hand off the gun and shoot you in the face. That doesn't seem a likely scenario for me. So it's a $500 gimmick, but I will say every time I went by their booth, man, it was filled with people, and they looked like they were selling them hand over fist.
Yep. Well, God bless them. All I will say is my favorite booth was the IO booth. So they decided not to show up, and they had a greeting card, a get well card.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. But I really don't have any gimmick things that I saw because I was pretty laser focused on specific companies that I wanted to go and talk to. So I usually miss about half or more of SHOT Show because I'm directly going to these specific companies. So
yeah, I had appearances and meetings and interviews and those things. I got very little time this year at SHOT Show to just kind of wander the floor and see what there was to see. So I spent an awful lot of time meeting to meeting.
Yep. So last question I will ask you, and then there's one other thing that I think that we should probably discuss is you are an HK fan.
I'm their brand ambassador, so yes.
Yeah, there you go. So there.
I was a fan before I was a brand ambassador.
Okay, there you go. So I do know that someone watching in the audience tonight will be intrigued by this question. But which one is your favorite, or which one is better in your opinion, the VP9 or the P30?
Oh, you're going to get me in the middle of problems. I think that for people who like the striker fire, that VP9 is a fantastic gun. I could carry a VP9 for the rest of my life, especially the new one, the VP9 2020 update, which I'm calling the VP9A1, with the optics cut in it and the 17-round magazine, and be completely happy for forever. That said, today I carry a P30 LEM, and I think that the LEM trigger is probably the holy grail of triggers. I think it gives us all the advantages that a hammer-fired gun offers, and all the advantages of a striker-fired gun, and none of the disadvantages of either. So with all those going on, I personally carry a P30. I love the P30. The problem right now is that P30s are imported from Germany, and Obendorf does not understand the American consumer market at all. And so getting a P30, especially a LEM trigger P30 right now, they're rare as hen's teeth. Yeah. So it's a problem to get them. And I have 5 P30s right now, and I love them. And my whole staff, mostly, other than Neil, our CMO, Neil likes the VP9 a little bit better, and he's got a fantastic Gray Guns VP9 that he loves. My personal carry gun right now is a P30 LEM trigger, 4.1 variant trigger that has been installed by Bruce Gray at Gray Guns. And the Gray Guns variant on that makes that gun a cheater gun, straight up. And mine has a red dot on it. And getting a red dot installed on a P30 is a bit of an ordeal because of the way that they're designed on the inside. Now you can get the VP9 with the optics ready mount on it, which is awesome. Or there's a number of companies that will actually mill the slide on a VP9 now. So a little easier to find that for those things, and a little more aftermarket holster support. Though it's kind of fun now that with me kind of being YouTube famous and more companies go, John, I want, we want to send you a holster. I'm like, cool, left-handed P30 with RMR, make it so. And then that's my crusade to get more P30 holsters in the market.
That's awesome. The reason why I asked that is because I knew that you are a huge HK fan, brand ambassador. My dad is yearning to buy a P30. So last year in Ram, he picked one up and just fell in love with it. So
it's a very high quality firearm. The thing I like about either the VP9 or the P30 is that you have both backstrap and side straps that are adjustable. So if you got small hands or big hands, I have really big, kind of beefy, fat hands, and I wear size XL gloves, and having the ability to put the large backstrap and side straps on it makes the gun fit my hand better. And I'm left-handed, so I love that it's ambidextrous controls, true ambi controls, which is a big deal. VP9 is as well.
Yep. So the Grim Reaper jumping in there with the $4.99 super chat saying Chiefs Kingdom, absolutely. With the sports ball, the Chiefs finally win a Super Bowl. I can now die a happy man.
You're hurting me deep, right?
I don't care.
I know. And props to the Chiefs. I'll say this. I'm a 49ers fan from my birth. My grandparents had season tickets at Kezar Stadium in the 50s. I went to my first Niners game at 6 months old. I bleed gold and red till I'm cold and dead. And congrats to the Chiefs on a heck of a game.
Okay, so you have 5 Super Bowl wins. We have 1, okay?
2 now.
Well, 2 now, yes. Yeah, we have 2 now. So, but great game. Naturally, looking at it in hindsight, of course, naturally the Chiefs showed up in the fourth quarter. There was a great game. And I told my wife before the Super Bowl, I says if there were 2 teams that deserved to be in the Super Bowl, it was those 2 teams. So
you can't ask for more than a competitive game in the fourth quarter. And we got it.
Yeah. Justin jumping in with the $5 super chat, just in case you deserve it. No questions, no messages, just enjoy a beer. Thanks, Justin. Hey, I'll put it towards the whiskey fund.
Oh yeah, what's up? What's your favorite whiskey?
Right now, I've got a couple different ones. Horse Soldier, which cannot be bought in Kansas. It's only you can only pretty much get it in Florida or there on the East Coast. It's distilled by the captain of the ODA team that was notable from Afghanistan, the first ODA team in Afghanistan. 12 Strong is the movie about him and his group. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. Templeton Rye. And then
I love Templeton Rye.
The one that I'm drinking on right now, I just bought a bottle a couple of days ago, is a dark rye. I want to say Emerson Biggins, but it's not Emerson Biggins. It's I can't think of it starts with an E. I can't think of the name of the brand, but it's kind of a higher end. Normally I'm drinking it, but tonight I'm doing water. I'm a little dehydrated. So
there you go.
But anyway, one last thing I wanted to ask about, Mark in the chat room wanted to get some information about the ASP conference. Can you talk about that and what that's all about?
Ready to rock. September 25th, 26th, and 27th at Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp at Living Water Ranch this year again, just north of Manhattan. And we're all 100% a fundraiser for the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp. So it is, I think, the only conference of its kind that is fully a charity event. So I don't touch a penny of it. None of the ASP staff touch a penny of it. None of the instructors touch a penny of it. So it's 3 days of training, conference style. So we will have this year some of the best instructors in the country. I mean, some of the names, of course, the entire ASP staff will be there for sure. I know that Dave Laird is going to be there. We're going to have, I can't even name. There's so many that are going to be there. and we do, it's conference style. So there are 3, or I'm bugging Mike to get his 4th range, Doug. And so we can run 4 ranges simultaneously. So you have 3 or 4 handgun classes in 2 and 4 hour blocks going on from different instructors about different things. We had AJ Zito, who will be back again this year, teaching red dot performance, which is amazing. He's so good with that. We had Samuel Middlebrook teaching. We had Paul Carlson from Safety Solutions Academy teaching. Chuck Haggard there teaching his OC spray course. So we have classroom classes going on a bunch too. So there's 4 or 5 classroom classes, 3 or 4 range classes going on at all day long, all 3 days, conference style. So you choose what's best based on your needs and abilities. And then it's mine. So we call it in-house. We call it Bullets and Bibles. So if you're going to, see me at a place like that, Jesus is going to be part of it. So we do devotions in the morning. Of course, if you're not into Jesus, you don't have to come to that. That's on you. But I'm into Jesus, so I'm going to do that. Saturday night, we actually had a worship service too, and that was fun. And people don't pay us. You don't pay Active Self-Protection. You go to the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp website and you make a donation to Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp. And we asked this year for each attendee that wants to come, you make a donation that pays for one child to foster teen to go to summer camp for a week. And that's $600. So to send one kid for the week, then that covers all of your training for the whole weekend. And that covers your dinners as well, and a continental breakfast. So we have a continental breakfast for you. We have a good full dinner for you. We're going to have like food trucks, I think, for lunch and those kinds of things for people to buy from. And we get the extracurriculars and those things. There might even be a few spots in the bunkhouse. If somebody, for the first maybe 50 people that wanted to sign up, maybe that might be there. I'm not positive this year. See how that goes. But it is a fantastic weekend of training. So we had good stuff there. We had some, we wanted to have some jujitsu, but unfortunately we didn't have the mats there that we wanted to. So we did some stand-up grappling there. Tons of great classroom stuff, great live fire training, great fellowship around the camp. And again, it's all to benefit Flint Hills Foster Teen Camps. What we did is we got our corporate donors to donate to the camp to pay for all the instructors to come. So all the instructors donate their time. Stephanie, our CEO, ran the whole thing, and she ran it herself to death doing that. And this last year, we raised almost $60,000 for the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camps. So we put, almost 100 kids through camp this year. Our goal is in 2020 to double it. So we're hoping to have and raise $120,000 for Flint Hills Foster Teens. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So go to the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp website, and if you make a donation and you tell them this is for the national conference, then Lisa and Stephanie will email you back and go, okay, here's your details and here's what we're doing. And it's going to be a great time. I guarantee you, we'll have fun.
Yep, absolutely. And 2 things. Number one is if you watch my videos, the range that I'm at is where we will be training, which is really, really super cool. And 2, if you go ahead and come out to the ASP conference, you'll get to meet me because I'll be there. So
right. Well, I'm excited to train with you.
Last thing that I will say before we get out of here is all the super chats that came in tonight will be donated to the foster teen camps. It's not much, but there's going to be that. I'm matching all of that, and I'll probably dump in another $100 because Mike and Lisa, they're both just great people. So if you guys are interested, if you're in the area, not only is John going to be there, but Mike and Lisa, they are getting a whole bunch of other trainers coming in. I know that Warrior Poet Society is coming in here.
Oh, cool. John's coming in. Great.
Yep, next month. I know that Chuck is going to be with you, obviously, but he's also going to do, he's doing low light, I think. At some point. He? Yeah, at some point this year. And then there's going to be some other really big names I'm trying to get plugged in as well. So, So with that, we were going to wrap things up. John, thank you so much. This has been so awesome. Yeah,
really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, it's an honor for me because I know you're busy. You've got a lot of things going on, and just to share the wealth of knowledge and everything that you've got going on really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to our viewers here. So thank you so much. I will clip small sections of this and kind of put those into another video so that will help kind of drive down some points, probably the de-escalation aspect of it, because I think that's pretty important. So last word to you, sir. You got anything?
Hey, train hard, be safe. And I tell folks all the time, if you take one live training class this year, you put yourself in the top 1% of firearms owners in America by doing that, which is kind of sad. I wish we'd have more that would come out and train. So you don't have to be a training junkie like I am, but take one full day of training this year and your life will change for it. You'll be better prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please get out and training, because like Grand Thumb says, if you don't have training, then you can't be cool, right? I don't know if that's what he says.
We'll take it as he said it officially. All right.
We'll just go with that.
We'll canonize it.
Anyway, thanks again, guys. Have a great night. I wish you guys a great week. And as always, keep calm and carry. We'll see you later. Bye, y'all.